And now we turn to Afghanistan. At the Pentagon briefing today, there was unusual emphasis on the information war, often referred to as the battle for hearts and minds. The Secretary of Defense is going to be interviewed for Al Jazeera television, which reaches throughout the Arab world, and the President's national security advisor was talking to Al Jazeera today. And along with the bombing in Afghanistan today, there was a hearts and minds effort. ABC's John McCarthy is at the Pentagon, as usual. John.
Peter, it's a stepped-up campaign on two fronts, as you point out, one of them using bombs and the other public relations.
While other aircraft continued the bombing campaign with even greater intensity, a B-52 left its bombs at home and for the first time dropped nearly 400,000 leaflets onto Afghanistan in various languages. The message, which is somehow supposed to win new friends, reads, quote, "The partnership of nations is here to help." It shows a picture of a Western-looking soldier shaking hands with an Afghan. In another part of the public relations war, Defense Secretary Rumsfeld today dismissed the Taliban's claim that U.S. bombs killed nearly 200 civilians in an Afghan village.
We know of certain knowledge that the Taliban leadership and al-Qaeda are accomplished liars. Now, do we have pretty good information about where the weaponry that's being fired is going? You bet we do.
The bombs went into a nearby tunnel, Rumsfeld claims, a tunnel loaded with enough ammunition and fuel that it burned and exploded for 3 hours after the strike, a possible cause of the damage.
The U.S. is also trying to beam radio broadcasts into Afghanistan, sending the message of why the U.S. is attacking and also warning people, we learned tonight, to stay away from military installations and government buildings. Peter?
Thank you, John. John McCarthy at the Pentagon. Afghanistan, as you know, is still largely out of bounds to reporters, which makes it harder to assess how much damage the U.S. bombing campaign is doing, and very hard to assess what the Taliban is doing and whether they are telling the truth about various incidents. ABC's David Wright reports tonight from a place called Jebel Siraj, just north of Kabul.
When Taliban soldiers escorted foreign journalists to the outskirts of Jalalabad, they said civilians had been killed here. They said Taliban troops are still alive and well armed, and that the bombing isn't fazing them. "We just laugh at these bombs," one of the Taliban escorts said. ABC News reporter Rahimullah Yousafzai was there.
They said Americans are hiding. They are throwing bombs from a height, and they won't come face to face to the Afghans.
As for the U.S. efforts to befriend people, those American food packets rained from the skies in parts of northern Afghanistan this weekend. People walked for miles to get them. "I don't know how to use these packages because I can't read," says this woman. "I only know it's food." And from the leaders of the key opposition force, the Northern Alliance, a confusing message. Some commanders still vow they'll be marching on Kabul any day now. Today, the alliance's political leaders weren't so sure.
One cannot rule out that idea, but it doesn't mean moving large number of military forces and military hardware into Kabul.
For the moment, these troops aren't moving at all. Most are parked in their trenches. It's early days, but so far this is a war without any clear-cut victories or defeats. That's true of the bombings and of the battle for public sympathy. David Wright, ABC News, Jebel Siraj, Afghanistan.
Secretary of State Colin Powell arrived in Pakistan today. He will meet President Musharraf tomorrow. ABC's Martha Raddatz reports extraordinary security on the trip. No pictures, as you've noticed, permitted of Mr. Powell's arrival. President Musharraf wants some assurance that the war in Afghanistan will not last long. There were more demonstrations against the war in Pakistan today, and thousands of businesses were closed after Islamic organizations called for a general strike. Secretary Powell is also going to go to India next. Today saw the worst violence in 10 months between India and Pakistan. They're fighting, as they have for so long, over the disputed territory of Kashmir between them. And in Indonesia today, which you've just been looking at, the most violent anti-American demonstrations yet, police outside the parliament, as you can see, using tear gas and water cannon to get it under control. Indonesia is, of course, the world's most populous Muslim nation. Now we can roll the video of Mayor Giuliani because it's got a bright spot, but gratitude. Here in New York today, Britain's Prince Andrew visited and on behalf of his mother, the Queen, announced an honorary knighthood for Mayor Giuliani. Many British nationals lost their lives in the attacks, and the British are expressing their thanks for Mayer's support. He is now Knight Commander of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire. Being an American, he may not call himself Sir Rudolph. When we come back, we'll take a closer look at tension in the mailroom. Massive changes at the country's biggest airline. 5 million people may have to change their travel plans. And also tonight, the sense of urgency in a small town. Barricades against the terrorists going up in lots of places.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Brought to you by Total Cereals.